Hello, welcome to Lesson 1-2, focusing on standard to standard unit conversion. Just want to go ahead and take a quick minute to go over our learning target for today. Our learning target for this lesson is going to be that I can convert standard units of measure to other standard units of measure. We're going to be dealing with units that you're more familiar with, like feet and miles and gallons and cups and pints and things like that today. So, let's go ahead and get started. So converting standard units of measure work very much the same as converting time. You will need to know something called conversion factors to be able to set up ratios that we're going to use to help aid in our conversions. We have some standard to standard conversion factors for you to take a look at. You will need to memorize these. You will not be given these on the mastery check or the test, so you will need to commit these to memories. For length, we have things like 1 mile equals 5,280 feet, 1 yard equals 3 feet, and 1 foot equals 12 inches. Now, we're trying to see if you're paying attention. On your packet, if you'll notice, the note says 1 foot equals 12 foot. Obviously, that is not correct, so make sure that you take the time to change that to inches instead of feet. It should be 1 foot equals 12 inches. We also have some volume conversions, and we have the fancy little gallon man to help you with those conversions. If you'll notice, inside of each measurement, you can see how many of the smaller measurements make up that bigger measurement. And we have the list off to the side of what those measurements are, in case you couldn't tell from the graphic. We also have some weight conversions we'll be looking at, specifically that 1 pound equals 2,000 pounds, and that 1 pound equals 16 ounces. So, if we are looking for an example, we want to see 20 cups make how many pints? So I'm going to have to first start by putting what I have, and we'll give the pen a second to catch up, 20 cups over 1. And we want to end up in pints. So we need to figure out a conversion that's going to allow us to go from cups to pints. Let's look back real quick at our gallon man. We see that there is 1 pint for every 2 cups. 1 pint for every 2 cups. So we need to put a fraction here. One of them is going to be pints and one of them is going to be cups. Now the trick is we want to get rid of cups. To be able to get rid of cups, we have to be able to cancel one from the top and one from the bottom. So on the bottom, we're going to put those 2 cups. On the top, we're going to have our 1 pint. Now you'll see that we have cups and we have cups. These are going to cancel out and go away. And if you'll notice, our only measurement that we're left with is going to be pints. So now our operation is going to be multiplication. These are 2 different fractions that we're going to be multiplying. So we're going to multiply the top times the top. So we're going to have 20 times 1. And then we're going to have the bottom times the bottom, which is 1 times 2. We multiply the top. 20 times 1 is going to still give us 20. And 1 times 2 is still going to give us 2. So we reduce that fraction. And we find that we're left with 10 pints. And that's going to be our final answer. Now you might have also noticed when you were doing this is that you could cancel here. 2 goes into 2 once and 2 goes into 10, or sorry, 2 goes into 20 10 times. And if you would multiply across, you would have gotten 10 over 1, which is the same answer we got. If you can see things that cancel, I would recommend going ahead and doing that. Now we have one more example to look at. Alright, we're going to take a look at one more example. We're going to look at the example, how many inches are in 1 mile? So, again, I'm going to write what I'm starting out with. Starting out with 1 mile. I also want to look at what I want to end up with. If we look at the problem, we want to end up in inches. So, I'm going to make sure that I put inches over here to make sure that I end up with what I am looking for. So, I start out with 1 mile over 1. Now, I don't have any conversions that go straight from 1 mile to inches. So I'm going to need to take a step in between. The step that we know that we have a conversion for in between is feet. So I'm going to switch from miles to feet. Now I have to think about which I want on top, the feet or the miles. I have miles on top, so I'm putting miles on bottom. So I'm going to write my miles here, and I'm going to put my feet on top. Now, we know that there are 5,280 feet for every 1 mile. Now, if we notice, our miles cancel, and now we're left with feet. However, feet is not what we want our final answer to be in. Forgive that stray mark. We want our final answer to be in inches. So, we need to take one more conversion. This time we need to go from feet to inches. So, I need feet on bottom since my feet are on top, and I need inches on top. We know there are 12 inches for every 1 foot. So we're going to now have our feet that cancel, our miles that cancel, and we're left with our only unit of inches. So our last step to do is multiply everything across. Now obviously the bottom is going to be 1. When we go ahead and multiply the rest of it, we are going to find that we are going to get 63,000. Oops, got a little off target there. We're going to get 63,360. So our final answer is going to be 63,360 inches in 1 mile. Alright, that includes the video lesson for 1-2. Go ahead and start the practice, and when you're done with that, check with your teacher with any questions that you have. Alright, see you in the next video.